Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today, again, working on the Lucas horizontal boring mill. And today what we got is the tabletop over here that we need to get finished, scraped in on the turcite, and get it mounted over here on the saddle and get this thing pretty much back together and back up and going. And that is the goal for today's video, is to do exactly that. So previously we installed the turcite on here. These are wear strips, basically a Teflon with bronze embedded in it that you put on machinery ways when you're rebuilding machines. It helps build up worn and ground surfaces. This table was sent out in ground, so we did lose some material on there. That'll help build that back up. And it's also a really slick surface that actually works better than cast iron on cast iron for machinery ways. This is what a lot of newer machines today are built with. And that is what we are going to be using. So we've already got the turcite scraped in over here on the saddle. We need to do basically a very similar process here on the table. Get it scraped in, check alignments, make sure everything is lined up like it needs to be, and we can get it put back together. So let's get in here and get started on it. All right, so we're going to start by trying to pull the cellophane out. We put this in like we did on the other side. This just basically prevents any of the epoxy that we use to glue these turcite strips down, keeps it from sticking to the mating parts that we had things setting on to kind of get this turcite set in place. And we did get some epoxy to kind of squeeze out, so we're going to have to get in there and clean that up. Very similar process to what we did on the saddle. So let's get this cellophane out of here as best we can, and then we'll start working on getting the epoxy cleaned up so that we can start our scraping process. Now what I did on the other side is I used a little chisel to just kind of go in here, and the epoxy that's kind of right up next to this turcite, it is brittle, and it just kind of pops right out there. It's not taking up the turcite. I mean, yeah, the turcite, but it is coming out pretty easily. And like I said, this is where it just kind of squeezed out the sides. This is not going to interfere with anything. And this little groove between the turcite here, this little open area, this is where the gib is going to go in, so I need that to be opened up and available for that gib to go into. So we're just going to work our way down through here, knock this epoxy out, and we'll just do that on both sides, get it cleaned up. Just a little closer up view here of us chipping this epoxy out. Pretty straightforward. It just comes right out, no big deal. We're just going to keep working this out till we get it all cleaned up. Well, after a good bit of cleanup work, I think I got all the epoxy, the extra epoxy kind of cleaned up out of here. And we are ready. We just got our turcite strips now that are cleaned up and ready to start scraping. So what I'm going to do is, just like we did on the saddle, I've got a hand scraper here, and we're going to be doing some pull scraping on this turcite at a 45-degree angle or 90-degree angles to one another, coming through here, make that crosshatch pattern all the way around. So we'll start down here. I tell you what, we'll start down here on this end and start scratching this in. Just like before, the whole idea here is I want to break this surface up and put a rough crosshatch on here. From here, we will take it over to the saddle, blue everything up, make sure we're getting good contact, make adjustments as necessary, but got to start somewhere. So we're going to start by just putting a crosshatch on here. And this pull scraping technique works really good on this soft turcite material. It's not so much good for cast iron scraping, but it is great for this, and it will allow us to get this thing blued up that first time and see. I'll come back from the other angle. I can't get all the way up in here, but I can kind of pull those out in that direction. So what I'll do is after I get through going all the way down, I'll come back and get up there. And I'll just go ahead and show you here, once we kind of get this done, I will come in here and go at 90 degrees and put that crosshatch in there like that. So let me get this scraped out, and we'll be ready to flip it over and blue it up and do some quick testing and see what we need to do, see if we need to make any adjustments from an alignment standpoint, and get her scraped in. So I have been over both sides here, and we've got our crosshatch scratched in here, scraped in here. Like I said, this is just a blind crosshatch right now. Theoretically, this should work pretty good because when we epoxy this, it was sitting on the flat ways. So, these should be pretty flat, kind of registering against a flat surface. And this is just to put the oil grooves in here. It breaks that surface up so you don't have quite as much surface tension, gives the oil a place to go. And just like I said, breaks that surface up a little bit. So we are going to now flip this thing over, take it over to the saddle, and blue up the ways, and we'll check this thing out and also check the alignment and see what needs to happen from there. I'm hoping that we don't have to do a whole lot of scraping to this. Got the table over here hanging out, ready to go on. Before I do, I need to blue up the ways here. So we just got some the spotting ink here, the Canode blue, like we normally use for scraping. I'm going to blue up the ways, and just like we do anytime we're scraping, what will happen is when we lay the table down on this and slide it back and forth, the ink that we're putting on, a thin layer of ink, it will transfer to the high spots on the bottom of the other mating piece, and we can get an idea as to how well these parts mate with one another and make sure that we're getting good contact from one end to the other. And if necessary, we can do some scraping to even things out. This is just normal scraping 101. So let me get this spread around on here. That should be a nice even coat. And we'll just slide our gantry down here. And we will lower this down into place. All right, there's the table. Now comes the fun part. Let's see if I can slide. Oh yeah, look at that. That's gonna slide nice and easy, just like it's supposed to. Man, that slides good. All right, so that slid on here real nice and easy, a lot easier than I thought it was going to. And before I pull it off, I want to check the alignment. So we're going to put our square up on here, run the indicator up and down the column, and just make sure that everything's good there. Not expecting to have to do a lot of tweaking for an alignment standpoint, but we just don't know until we check it. So we're going to check it and make sure. So just like before, I have my granite square on here. This is a very accurate square. And we've got an indicator mounted to the head. We're going to sweep the indicator up And what that's going to tell me is if the table is sitting perpendicular to the spindle, you know, in this direction here. So if it's out one way or the other, it's either leaning forward or backwards. We should be able to go up and have it, you know, within hopefully less than a thou over that distance. We will then turn the square 90 degrees, sweep it again, and of course that will tell us in the other direction and make sure everything's good. We did that on the saddle. It all checked out there. Theoretically, everything should check out here too, but until we check it, we just don't know. So I'll fire my machine up. We're going to be taking the spindle up. So let me move my over here. And we'll sweep up. The indicator moved a little bit there right out of the bump. And I've been playing around with this a little bit, and after sweeping this a bunch of different times and making a few little adjustments, one thing I did was I tightened the table down where it couldn't move. I think I was getting a little bit of flex in the table just from the machine vibration, but it's running pretty much dead nuts on. We're right on zero. It's interesting as it goes up. I'm seeing about, you know, maybe a half a thou to 3/4 of a thou of variation in that needle, just depending on where it is going up and down the square, which makes me think my head is wobbling, but we're talking really, really small numbers, so I'm pretty happy with it. We're going to turn it 90 degrees and check it in the other direction and see what it looks like that way, but I'm happy with where I'm at here as far as alignment's concerned. And we are sweeping up in the other direction. And let's get up to the top. I'm get around there and take a peek at that indicator and see where it's at. I'm over here holding my controls, so I hadn't even looked at it yet. And we'll stop about right there. And peek around here at it. Looks like maybe about a thou. Let me get over here directly in front of it. Oh, it's better than that. So looking straight down it, it's not quite half a thou. It is off just a tad, but I think that's going to be good enough for what we're doing here. So again, I'm happy with my alignment measurements. Everything's lining up with the saddle as I would expect it to. So I think we're ready to move on. We're going to flip the saddle back over, look at our bluing pattern, and as long as it looks pretty decent, we may just leave it like it is. If it sees some problems, we may do some more scraping. We'll just have to take a look at it and see what it looks like. Let's pull that table up and take a peek. Before I flip it over, I want to drill my oil holes that are through this table. And the way this was done originally, there's 4 holes, 2 here, 2 on the other side that go all the way through that allow you to put oil onto those ways. Now, they had these socket set screws in them, just kind of covering them up. And they honestly look like they're all clogged up right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a long drill bit here. Okay, that's not so bad. And I'm going to go all the way through, and that's going to actually drill through the turcite in the bottom of that hole. And again, that's just will be the oil holes that we will oil from the top, and it will keep the bottoms lubricated. And it's actually pretty nice. You can just fill these up with oil and close them up and just periodically put some fresh oil in there. And the way those ways are is it'll keep the oil captured in there and it'll kind of self-feed. So let me go ahead and get the cap screws off the other side, get those drilled through, and I think we're good there. So you take a quick look here at the blue pattern on the bottom. And yeah, you know, that's when you consider the amount of surface area that we got in contact there, that's actually pretty nice. You know, it'd be nice to have a little bit more contact in a couple places, but you got to remember this stuff's going to wear in a lot better than cast iron on cast iron would. So I think it's fine. The top looks very similar. So I think we're just going to roll with it. I think it's fine. And particularly with the alignments like they are, I really kind of hate to mess with it too much. So I'm just going to leave it like it is. You can see the hole here here in the bottom where the oil is going to come through, and I've scratched or I've drawn where I want my oil grooves to be at. And I'm just going to use my hand scraper, turned up on the side, and we're just going to basically just kind of use it to scratch a little groove in there. And we're just going to take it all the way down to the cast iron and just give that oil a little groove to go in. Now, originally, where these oil grooves came in, it didn't have this kind of a pattern. It just had a circle cut on each one of them. I'm doing a little bit different here. I'm actually moving that oil groove out a little bit farther than what it was originally, but it should distribute the oil a little bit better. So we'll just scratch these in here. This will take a few minutes. Goes pretty quick. This turcite is fairly soft. Doesn't take a whole lot to cut it. And just turning the scraper up on edge is typically all that's required to do this. Once you kind of get a trough going, it'll follow it pretty good. I'll come at it from the other direction there to finish that one up. Well, we expended a little bit of elbow grease there, but we've got our oil grooves cut in here, and we are ready to flip this thing back over and set it back in place over on the saddle. And this will probably be the last I get to look at the bottom of this thing for a while. Before I do, there is one piece I need to put in here. There's a clamp. Let me get that real quick. So right here in the table, there's this little hole drilled down here, and this piece comes in on the side. And basically what this does is this, there's this bolt that comes in the side here. And when you tighten this up, it just pulls up against the back side of this way here and clamps it in place. And that's basically your table lock is all that it is. So I'm gonna leave that right there. It should be fairly loose, and we can tighten that up to lock the table down later on. So other than that, I think we're ready to flip this back over and set her in place. We're just about ready to put this over here on the saddle. Before I do, I am just gonna take some whey oil here and put some on these saddle ways. So we have everything pre-lubed. I think I got it in there. Next step here is to put the gib in. Now, unlike the one on the saddle, this is not a tapered gib. This is a flat gib, and there are set screws that you use to adjust it. You got the holes right here, and there's a screw in either end that just kind of holds it in place. That just kind of goes through it, and like I said, it screws into the gib and kind of keeps it from falling out. Actually engages it. So I'm going to start by putting these screws in, see if I can get them started here. Got to get it in just the right position. And there's another one here on the front. Like I said, this screws into the gib and kind of holds it in place, keeps it from falling out. And then these screws adjust, puts pressure on the gib, and you can use these to actually adjust it and get it set just right. This is just a big long socket cap, or socket set screw rather, and then there's a jam nut on the top that's once you get it set, you tighten that nut up against it. I'm just gonna kind of snug them in right now, and once we get the cross slide screw in place and can crank on it a little bit, we'll adjust these to where they feel pretty good and tight. We want it as tight as we can get it, but not so tight that it binds up. Up next, we need to get our plate that mounts up underneath the bottom here that clamps on and basically prevents this table from rising up. There's 7 holes in here, and if I remember right, the ones in the middle, there's not a lot of clearance, so I'm going to have to probably get these screws kind of in here before I kind of put this in place. This is going to be one of those cases where I need a couple extra hands, and I'm not going to have them. But we'll do the best job we can. There we go. I think what I'm going to do is try to use these clamps to kind of lift these up, get them into place, more or less, and see if I can get my hole started. I'm going to try to get a bolt started on the other side. We've got the table pretty much put back together here as far as installed and back up on the saddle. We got the rails up underneath the bottom installed on both the front and the back, and this is pretty much where we need to be right now. I'm running out of time today. We do have a few more things we need to do on this. I need to get the lead screw installed, the handle and all that up on the front. And there's a couple other little things that we need to do to kind of wrap this thing up and move on. But we're running out of time in this video, so we'll come back and finish that up at a later time. So with that, guys, that is going to be a wrap. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are greatly appreciated. Hit that bell icon to get notification when new videos are made. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And guys, big, huge thank you to all the supporters out there who support the site on Patreon, PayPal, etc. And with that, we'll catch you on the next video again. Thanks for watching.